Hey, today we are going to see some of the ASP.NET Core advanced interview questions. Question number 1. In ASP.NET Core, what create a host builder will do? In program.cs, this is the very first thing happening in the application. This function will create object for the host, and based on the host object, the subsequent processes will be happen like creating a scope, creating services objects, etc. What is host in ASP.NET Core? As a first step, the ASP.NET Core apps configure and launch a host. The host is responsible for app startup and lifetime management. Ideally, the host configures a server and a request processing pipeline. The host can also set up logging, dependency injection, and configuration. Question number 3. What is the purpose of program.cs in ASP.NET Core? The answer is this is the entry point of the ASP.NET Core application where the program will build the host object and create scope of the application. Question number 4. What is the scope in ASP.NET Core? In ASP.NET Core, we can create and manage custom scopes by calling createScope function. When for the need of custom services that live outside of the HTTP request. The interface used for this is iServiceProvider. Question number 5. What is a startup class? This is the second thing called after the program.cs in the ASP.NET Core application. Now the startup.cs file will not be present from the version 6.0. Question number 6. What are configure services and configure methods? The answer is both the methods were present until version 5.0 and no longer present from the version 6.0. Configure services method is like this method gets called by the runtime. Use this method to add services to the container. For example, if you want to add the application, add infrastructure, add database developer, page exception filter, add singleton, creating the objects for that. For configure method, this method gets called by the runtime. Use this method to configure the HTTP request pipeline. For example, you can use authentication, you can use identity server, you can use authorization, you can use endpoints. As mentioned earlier, from the version 6.0, we don't have the startup.cs class. So all the configuration services and configured items will be moved to the program.cs, and there will be no dedicated method to categorize the both. So the programmers will use with a command like this. Question number 7. How the request pipeline is processed. So as you can see is first the request is being passed to various number of middlewares here. So first it crosses the exception handler and the HSTS and HTTPSD redirection. Then it will go to the static files, and then it will go to the routing and the cars, cross origin, resource sharing, that is and authentication, then authorization. And if you are having any custom middlewares, then it will go through that process and it will give the response in the same manner how we have processed. Question number 8. While creating services, how will you determine the lifetime and scope of the objects, and how can you specify this? There are 3 ways to create the services objects and set the scope of them. The first one is transient object, like create fresh new objects for every request. Example, a new sale order object or a new employee object. And the next one is scoped. This will be the same for each request for session, but different for different sessions. Say for example, user session details will be provided in a single object for a given user, and a different user session object will be built for another user. The final one is singleton. Only one object will be created throughout the application, not for user specific. For example, make log entries of the application requires only one single object for the application lifetime. Question number 9 is what is the difference between IOC and DI? IOC is inversion of control. Is the design target intended to achieve between the classes and their dependencies. DI is dependency injection, is one of the design patterns that used to achieve this target. There are other ways to achieve IOC which is subject to this application. As the name suggests, the flow of the control is inverted to improve the performance, maintainability and scalability. Question number 10. What is the difference between app.run and app.use? The answer is both will do the task of adding the middleware to the request pipeline, but the basic difference is app.run will terminate the request and does not process the further requests, whereas the app.use will add the middleware to the request pipeline and transfer the process to the next middleware. I hope this video may have provided you some bit of useful information. If so, please subscribe and like and support us. Thank you.